Ancestral Mikmaw practice. Is there a time frame for ancestral knowledge? Is there a fluidity into interpretation of what this means? When we speak about ancestral Mikmaw practices, are we referring to Mikmaw practices since time immemorial? Are we referring to Mikmaw practices from 10, 12, or 14,000 years ago? Are we referring to Mikmaw practices from before European contact? What about the practices that have been adopted into communities and practices within the last 500 years? For example, pre-contact ancestral beading and decorative materials such as quills, bone, teeth, antler, and other natural materials were updated with more modern materials such as glass beads in the 1700s after the arrival of Europeans. But that doesn't make the practice any less Mikmaw. When we speak of ancestral Mikmaw practice, we are referring to the traditional forms of knowledge, skill, and artistry passed down through generations of Ilnu. These may include materials, techniques, and teachings that predate contact, but they also reflect the natural evolution of Mikmaw culture and access to new materials over time. These artistic and cultural expressions are alive. Their makers adapted materials while continuing to carry deep cultural meaning. Every Mikmaw has their own creative expression. That is why Mikmaw invites you to reflect on your own experience as a creator of products or services. At this point in the journey, we invite you to ask yourself this key question. Does my creation unmistakably and identifiably represent my Mikmaw culture? This is the heart of what we ask from you here. We acknowledge the historic influence that may have impacted Mikmaw cultural knowledge and practices today. At the same time, the primary focus of Mikmaw is to emphasize Mikmaw cultural authenticity within our diverse representations of creative expression. In this way, we honor our ancestral heritage and foster cultural reclamation and continuity. Through our community conversations, we identified many examples of ancestral practice, from materials like quill, moose hide, and birch bark, to experiences like Gojawa demonstrations, medicine walks, or teachings about traditional plants and foods. These expressions ground us on who we are, even as they evolve in form. If these are the types of materials you use within your products or services, you likely work with ancestral Mikmaw practice. Remember, ancestral Mikmaw practice isn't a boundary, it's a foundation, one that gives shape, meaning, and direction to everything we create. For more examples of ancestral Mikmaw practice, please look in your toolkit on page 21.